Welcome back to the Old Soul Millennial channel. This will be the first year I'm attempting to manufacture my own maple syrup. Thus far, I've collected all the supplies and I've also manufactured a homemade evaporator, 2-pan evaporator out of an old smoker. I already posted that video. I'll leave a link to that video in the description down below. In today's video, I'm going to start tapping trees. First, we're going to talk about why. We're going to go out and tap the trees, and then I'd like to go over all my equipment. I normally share all the equipment up front, but temperatures are ideal right now and I just want to get outside and start tapping trees. So when should you tap your trees? Well, I think traditionally most people tap their trees in late winter, but it really depends on the temperatures. From my understanding, you want to tap your trees when the temperatures outside during the day are above freezing, ideally around 42 degrees, 40 degrees. And at night, you want things to freeze. So you'd ideally like to get into the mid-20s. And what this does, as things freeze and thaw, it creates pressures in the tree. The sap flows up and then it flows down. And then the idea is by installing a tap, we will try and extract that sap from the tree into these buckets. And then from there, we're going to collect all the sap, bring it over to our evaporator, and then we're going to evaporate off the excess water. We're going to try and concentrate that sap down to syrup. I'm tapping right now at the end of January. The temperatures look okay. There's definitely a few freezing days, but I'm seeing a few 40-degree days, high 30s, and I'm also expecting to be a father towards the end of this month. It might be a tad bit early to tap the trees, but I have time to do this now, so I'm going to act while the temperatures look okay. Real quick, my buckets, 2.5-gallon aluminum buckets. I got these secondhand on Facebook Marketplace, paid $9 a piece, so I got 11 buckets and spiles and lids. 11 of these setups for $100. I think that's pretty good compared to what they cost new. Actually, before we go out and tap our trees, I want to talk about this map that I've made, how it's going to help me achieve the best possible yields, and I also want to share with you something I recently learned and how I adjusted to the information that I recently learned. So about 5 months ago, when all the leaves were still in the trees, I walked around the property and I marked all my sugar maple trees. Sugar maples are said to be the ideal tree because they have the highest sugar concentration. So again, I walked around the property, just marked those trees with pink ribbons. So I figured, this time of year when all the leaves are off the trees, it'll be really easy to identify those trees to tap. About 2 weeks ago, I learned that you can tap pretty much all maple trees, not just sugar maple. So you can tap red, silver, I believe there's a black maple. So this left me in a little bit of a bind. I had to walk around the property again and try and identify other maple trees, which it's pretty hard to do when the leaves are off the trees. But you can pick up on some clues. The stems, like when the branches go off the main stem of the tree, the trunk of the tree, where the buds go out, they should go out evenly across from one another. You also look for some white spotting on the branches and just how the bark looks. So I was able to successfully identify a lot of red maples. So as I was out marking these red maples, I marked them with the pink ribbon, and this time I wrote on the pink ribbon what type of maple tree they were, if it was red or sugar. And I also took a measurement of the diameter of the trunk. And then I made this map. So this makes it really easy to pick out what trees I want to tap, because generally the larger the diameter the tree is, the better sap flow you're going to achieve. So here I have a 25-inch red, 12-inch sugar, 12-inch sugar, 13 sugar, 16-inch sugar, 15 red, 12 red. So I have more trees than I do buckets and taps. And this is good because if I do end up tapping too early, there's a few other trees I can swap over to if my flows are not good. But I just wanted to share that with you. I think this is going to be extremely helpful for me, and I recommend if it's your first time doing this as well, this is something you probably want to think about doing. So earlier this morning, I was washing out all these buckets in the sink, just some soap and water, washed out all the spiles. So these are clean, ready to go. I have a nice clean sheet in my wagon here, just trying to keep all the debris out of there. Now, the lids that I got for the buckets are galvanized, which I'm not really too concerned about. The old school maple collection buckets were galvanized steel, and you definitely do not want to use galvanized buckets. The lids, them being galvanized, I'm really not concerned about it because in theory it should never contact the sap. It just provides a shield for the top of the bucket to ensure that, no debris and schmutz gets into the bucket. All right, we also have our map. Put this on the side of the wagon here. Here's our spiles. All right, I have all my gear loaded up in my cart. Map, buckets, spiles are in the buckets, lids, drill bit, 7/16 inch drill bit, piece of tape marking 2 inches at the end of the drill bit. Now, as for driving those spiles into the trees, you know, the spiles are aluminum, so as opposed to hitting them with a hammer, I'm going to use this piece of brass as kind of like a punch. So, I'm excited. Let's see how this goes. We're on the south side of the tree. Now, from my understanding, you want to tap 2 to 3 feet high, which is pretty much in between my knee and my waistline. So I'm gonna put the tap in right about here. So let's give it a try. Let's see how this goes. Now, as for the level of the drill bit, I'm gonna have it pitched slightly down. You want to try and go straight in and straight out, high speed. I just drilled my first tap hole. I was a little disappointed to see that no sap is flowing out of the hole just yet. That lets me know that I'm probably a little bit early, but I have to consider how much time I have to invest in this project. I have a baby girl coming in a month and a half, and I'd imagine I'm not gonna have much time to work on this at that point. So priorities, right? But something you want to pay attention to when you're drilling into the tree, pay attention to the shavings. You know, the shavings coming out of the tree should be light in color. You want to ensure that you're drilling into live wood as opposed to dead wood. Sap is not going to flow through dead wood. Another thing to consider is, have you tapped this tree in the past? If you have, then you want to ensure that you drill, I believe, at least 6 inches away from that previous tap hole. So it is what it is. We're supposed to get some decent temperatures throughout this week, so I'm going to go ahead and install my aluminum spiles and buckets anyway, because now's the time. So when we're tapping this spile into the tree, I believe we want to tap it in until the sound changes. You want to hear it kind of deaden out. Here it's like a little springy right now. And that about deadened out right there. Hook on our bucket. Now I guess there's supposed to be a little thin piece of wire that goes through the tap that connects to the lids. Looks like the guy didn't give me any wire, so let me run into the workshop and try and find something that'll work. I ended up cutting just a little piece of mechanics wire, so I guess we'll try and slide this in the slot of the lid. Yeah, this is too short. It's got to be at least from here to here so you can kind of control it on one end. Going from this end. There we go. That'll do it. I'm just going to fold the end here too. And now we wait. So the first tree I tapped was a red maple. Now these two marked trees are sugar maples. What I find very interesting, if we go up the trunk of this sugar maple, the bark appears to be wet between probably 5 to 8 foot up the tree. So I think there's a real good chance when we tap these sugar maples that they are going to start flowing. I did a quick Google search and Google revealed that sugar maples tend to flow sap first. So let's go over there. Let's take a closer look at the bark and then we'll tap this sugar maple on the left here. So here's a closer look at the trunk. Now what I'm noticing, there's actually 4 or 5 very small holes in the trunk. Probably a woodpecker or something was pecking in here. So the sap is flowing very slowly, but it is flowing. I can actually hear it tapping on the ground a little bit. So that brings up the question, where do I tap the tree now due to these holes being right here? So I think as opposed to going right here, I think I'm going to go to the left side a little bit, try and offset the plane a little bit. So let me set up the camera, we'll tap this tree and see if we can get any sap flowing. So nothing yet, but I think within a day, this will start flowing. I see a little bit of sap seeping out. Just very small. Oh, there it goes. You know what? It is flowing. Right on. I've done away with the brass punch just because it's too much of a pain. Let me get the camera a little closer because I want you to see this. Let me get the tap in though. So there's our hole. You can see a little bit of sap flowing down. See it running down the trunk. Let's get this tap in and start collecting. Now I've done away with the brass punch because it wasn't flat. It's just easier to use the hammer. Sorry, the camera was running away from me, but she's in. That's exciting.